come to play. He's the biggest of them all. Step back, 4-3.
Phoenix forced a turnover at halfway. Yes, sir.
Clock at 10. Adams the off balance.
Oh my goodness!
Alrighty guys, and welcome back to the Basketball Fix podcast. Now in today's episode, we're going to be quickly recapping the Australian Boomers' performance over in Paris quickly and then be looking ahead to their road to gold. Now, I'm joined by only one man on the screen today. Ryan can't make it for today's episode, but I'm joined by Jeremy. How you going, mate? And welcome to the show.
Mate, I'm going very well. It's been really some highs and lows watching these Boomers play in the Olympics in Paris. I think we come in after the game against Spain and had a heap of confidence, and then it's been sort of hit pretty hard the last two matches. But you know what? Sometimes you need a bit of luck in a tournament, and we certainly got that at the Olympics, and almost got a second chance here, a second life, you could almost say. And you know what? Now it's finals. It doesn't matter what happened in the group stages. It's all about looking forward in these types of tournaments. And hopefully we can get up and play really well against Serbia tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously 8 teams now are left of the original 12 teams that did qualify for the Olympic Games as well. And yeah, you couldn't be more spot on, mate. It's been very interesting. Now, let's start recapping off with the first game. That was Australia taking on Spain. Now, we're going to be doing these in a very quick little recap. Obviously, everyone knows what's happened. Everyone's watched the games. But, Jez, what were some of your thoughts, mate? Because this was a very interesting game, and it was a good way to kick off the Olympic campaign, but it was pretty downwards from here, I guess.
Yeah, well, you could almost say everything good that happened in this tournament happened in that first quarter against Spain, really. It's like we shot out of the blocks. We outscored them 31-21 in the first quarter, and that really just set the platform for the rest of the game. They did get it close. They may have even taken the lead or tied up the game at one stage there, but it sort of always felt like we were in control there. And even though we had sort of some small down periods there, it really felt like we were in control. We were scoring well. We were playing pretty good defensively. And then when we started to miss some shots there a little bit, our defense stepped up. So it felt like we did a good job. We really sort of we got a lot of questions answered of how the Aussies were going to play. I think we got the best out of Giddy. We really saw Landau. He scored 20 points. 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Giddy was getting boards. He almost had a triple-double with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. And Fever Paddy was there for the first game. We'll get into Paddy in the other games, but it really sort of felt like he brought in that sort of pre-season exhibition game form that he did have, where everybody was back on the Fever Paddy train, and he put up 19 points and didn't really look like missing. So I think, when it comes to the Spain game, it was really important for us to get that win and build our confidence. And it was lucky we even put our foot on the gas again in the third quarter, because it felt like by pushing out that lead to 12 points, it actually got us through because of that plus minus. So really, really important. Like everybody sort of says in these games, that you can't stop shooting, you can't stop scoring. You got to keep going until the final whistle. And it was lucky we did that against Spain and got that big win.
Yeah, in Spain, you mentioned there as well, they didn't take the lead, but they brought it back to 4 points in that particular game in the last quarter, before a couple of made shots to Giddy, Mills, and even Jack McVeigh as well, who knocked down some massive shots to end that game. So, obviously the Boomers walked away that game 92-80 point winners. And like you mentioned, mate, it was really impressive to see, I guess, the big three, we call it, in the Australian Boomers. And it was probably the only time we saw, I guess, the bona fide big three work. And if you want to obviously have a full recap of this particular game, go to www.thebasketballfix.com. We've got a recap of all these games as well for you guys to check out. So go check that one out as well, because it's a good read, hopefully, for you guys to have a read of, and obviously gives you a bit more of an in-depth discussion and recap of what that game was. Now, but we're going to move to the next game, and that was Australia taking on Canada. Now, this was seen as, I guess, the hardest game for the Boomers in this particular group. Canada come in with some major names, looking at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks, just to name a couple of them. And those three guys subsequently ruined the Australian Boomers in this particular game. You look at a guy like RJ Barrett, had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. And Dylan Brooks, 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. And I just think the biggest thing was the fact that Canada came in off some really good form against, obviously, Greece, and they held Giannis pretty well, I guess, in that particular game. And, it was really just those 3, which we mentioned, took over the Australian Boomers. And the Boomers didn't really have much of an answer. On the Boomers side, Jez, can you give us a little bit of a thought on, obviously, how that game went and some of the statistics as well?
Well, I don't know. I think our big two worked there. We definitely had Giddy. He shot at 50%. He has been really impressive. 19 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds. And Jock down low was also really impressive. Another 16.12 rebound game and 4 assists. But yeah, it was the downfall of Paddy Mills, I think. That really hurt us. And he shot 2 from 10. His time went down. But I think his time also went down on court because we saw the return of Dante Exum, which we were wondering about coming into the tournament. And Exum played well. He scored 15 points and was quite influential in a really positive way for the Boomers there. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, we were outclassed. And I think we thought with SGA, he sort of got into a bit of foul trouble early, and it sort of gave us a little bit of hope there. But you have Murray coming in and scoring a heap of points. I think, and then we saw sort of SGA once he got back into the game. He was the game changer, exactly like we said in our preview to the tournament. He was always going to be the threat, and when he got back in the game, he torched us. So we just didn't seem to have an answer for him. And then obviously, the more involved he got, the more involved Barrett got, and we couldn't stop that 1-2 punch there at all.
No, definitely. And that final score for that particular game was 93-83, with Canada walking away with a 10-point victory. And, we touch on in these particular group stages, the point differential is so important. And, Spain, obviously, the Boomers won by 12 points. And then to go on to lose by 10, it really does bring that points differential right back to the pack. But the last game was seen as probably the most important game by far, and it wasn't just for obviously the sake of going through to the quarterfinals and hopefully being able to vie for a medal, but it was seen as a way realistically for Paddy Mills, I guess himself personally, to bounce back, and some of these other players as well to bounce back as well. And I want to get your thoughts off the top, Jez, because it was a very interesting game against Greece, and it obviously wasn't the result the Boomers wanted.
No, I think offensively it was. Yeah, like you touch on Paddy, and he was a little bit better, but still only shot 5 from 15. And then, like I just mentioned, Dante Exum was solid in the game against Canada, but he had an off night shooting, and maybe that's why Mills's minutes also went back up to 30, where I think they were around sort of 20 in that game against Canada. And they sort of basically swapped roles a little bit there because, Dante shot 2 from 9, only one of 3 from 3. So he had a bit of a tough night, but our 2 old reliables on the offensive side of the ball with Landale and Josh Giddey also had a shocker, to be honest. So we just sort of found it really, really tough offensively. They would have focused on shutting down Giddey, and they did that really well. But the turning point in that game, 100%, was Dyson Daniels' injury. We saw he got injured 5 minutes into the second quarter, and the Greece went on a 17-4 run to end out that quarter. They scored 14 straight points to end the quarter. So we got our 4 points sort of right when he went off injured, and then they went on a 14-0 run to close out that quarter. And the game was over. You may as well have packed your bags. It was all about points differential after that because we had an incredible fight back, you'd have to say, and you have to give them credit for that. But it was more that Greece sort of started missing their shots. There was some massive patches in the second half where both teams were awful. We were just going back and forth, missing shots. There was nobody influencing the scoreboard at all. So, and then we obviously went on our run and pulled somewhere around 16 point lead they had at some stage. And we brought that all the way back. But then they started to hit a couple of shots and closed out the game. So, and it was also like we talked about, say, in the preview to the whole Olympics, who was our guy that was going to close out the game. We did really, really well to fight back, and then we started missing shots and didn't have that clutch player that was gonna score and put us in the lead. So, Yeah, like it was a disappointing game, to be honest. It was the worst game I think that we played, and it should have needed to be our best game to make sure that we were safe and qualified for the quarterfinals. And now has put us on a really tough side of the draw. Probably the same side of the draw if you think about it now, because we still ended up getting lucky and qualifying second in that group. So, hopefully we put in a better performance heading into this game against Serbia. What were your thoughts on that game, mate?
Yeah, Jez, you couldn't be more spot on. You look at that second quarter there, mate. 28-12 point outscored in that particular quarter for the Boomers. And, in that third quarter was just, I guess, also disappointing for the Boomers as well, 14-9. But I just think there's so many different things. You touched on, obviously, who's going to be the closer for the Boomers, but who was also going to stop Giannis? That was the other one. 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think it was really tough. It was always going to be a question. It's always going to be a question, even looking forward into this game against Serbia. Is all right. Who's gonna stop Jokic? When we have who was going to stop SGA? We have this continual question, and you go back to Matthias Thybulle. Why wasn't he in the team? You've got Duop Reef that's played no minutes. What is he? We could have found a matchup, or if we thought, obviously Dyson Daniels has had a really, really big tournament and he's been sort of our shutdown guy. But if you're not even giving any minutes to Duop Reith, why wouldn't you have another defensive specialist in your squad that can maybe come on if Daniels can't get the job done or Landau can't stop any of these big guys? Bringing in Thibault could have been something that changed the game for us and got a couple of stops and made them start to think about their strategy with their big guys. If it was Canada, or if it's Greece, or if it's Serbia, it could have been a really, really nice little ace up your sleeve to have him sitting on the bench, considering that Reith isn't getting any real minutes anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, I had a bit of a frog in the back of the throat there and still continue to do it. So I had to quickly throw that over to Jez. But yeah, mate, he was influential in that win, obviously, for Greece. And he's going to be a big factor for them potentially going further into the group stages. Now, obviously, we touched on all 3 games that the Boomers have played in so far. Now, let's obviously touch on some of the best performances in some of these players. Now, Jez, I want to start with you. Who has been some of the best players? And then we'll touch on who has been the best player.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty tough. I think we've had some really consistent performances offensively. I think for me personally, I'd have to say probably our most influential player has been Josh Giddey. He had a bit of a tough night scoring against Greece, but otherwise he still put up 6 assists and had 11 rebounds, which is what you have to do if you're a scorer, you're in there, you need to be pulling your weight in other areas. And he got, say, a double-double in assists and rebounds because he was off not shooting very well. And he also started to take sort of limited shots as well. He only took 8 shots because it wasn't his night. But I think in those first 2 games, he was really influential, and it's going to be really good to see when the Olympics is over and he moves to the Chicago Bulls and is this sort of number one guy where he's controlling the game. I think he's turned a lot of heads and opened a lot of eyes heading into the next NBA season by what he has actually done in those exhibition games and also in the first 2 games at least of this Olympics, because he's shown that he can be that guy and he's only going to get better with more and more experience. So if I had to say one, I'd say it's Giddey, but yeah, there is a couple of other guys definitely that have played well for us. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, Jock Landale's the one that I've sort of looked at as well. And, Giddey's been amazing. And they've been a really good 1-2 punch, I think, for the Boomers throughout all 3 games. And you look at Jock's 3 games so far. His first game, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Second game, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. And in the final game, 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. So what he's doing is it's not just scoring and rebounding. It's showing that, the international basketball way, as we all do know, is as much about defense as it is about playmaking and moving the basketball. And Jock, you're looking at 5, 4, and 6 rebounds. He's averaging 5 assists, I should say, over those 3 games. That's incredible for a big man. So, I think he's been also really crucial to the Australian Boomers. And the biggest question, obviously, was who is the big 3? Who is the big 2? Who is the man on the team? These couple of guys that we've mentioned already have been the most consistent players for the Boomers. And I think most would have thought Paddy Mills would be the third, I guess, sort of string to the bow or bow to the string, whatever way you want to put it. But it's another guy, and it's a young guy, Dyson Daniels. Now, can you give us a few thoughts on him, mate? Because, you touched on him there in Greece. He obviously was a very important piece as to why the Boomers were out of the game, then back into the game. But throughout the whole 3 games, mate, he's been very crucial.
Yeah, 100%. He's been able to mark up on these bigger guys. He like they're big scorers. He's really, opened your eyes to what sort of caliber player that he is. And like you said, young, he's certainly going to get better. He's going to be in this Boomers team for a really long time, and he's going to play a very, very crucial role in World Cups and Olympics to come. So he's been incredible. And he's also hit some clutch shots, I feel. Have just the Greece game up, and he's also he put up 11 points in that game. It feels like he's gone double digits in most games, and it feels like he's scored at really opportune times for us when we've had a little bit of trouble, and he's been scoring from all areas. So I think he's really, really shown that he is developing and becoming a really mature all-round player, not just this sort of key defensive guy. And maybe that's why we see that he got the pick over Matthias Thibault, because Gorge knew, okay, I'm going to get a specialized defender, but I'm also going to get someone that can score. And that might have been the switch that sort of tipped him over and saw him get that sort of number one key defender role.
Yeah, and I've just got a stat here as well that I wanted to mention. Now, when we're touching on, and it's perfect you mentioned it, mate, right there at the end, obviously the Matisse Thibault, Dyson Daniels selection, I think. There's been so much made about, obviously, Matisse not making the squad, but when you actually go back and look at their defensive ratings, now shout out to Ryan, who's an analytical geek, I guess, and he'll be listening to the show coming up as well. But you look at Dyson Daniels' defensive rating in the NBA last season, it's sat at 114. You then go to Matisse Thibault, who we all have been ranting and raving about throughout this whole build-up to the Olympics, has been this outstanding defender. His defensive rating was only 0.3 better than Dyson Daniels. So he had 114.3. So when we're looking at that, and then obviously you're going to get the offensive end from Dyson, I think now looking at it, and with hindsight is obviously a beautiful thing, but it does look like 100% that it was the right move for this team. And yes, would have been nice, I guess, to have a Matisse Thibault and a Dyson Daniels working as a tandem to stop Giannis in that Greece game. 100%. But I still think that they've made the right decision if this was the final selection for the team. If it was Dyson or Matisse Thibault, they 100% made the right selection with obviously going with Dyson Daniel. Now, quick answer here, mate. Who has been the best performer so far for the Boomers?
I think you've got to give it to Dyson Daniels. I think he's been probably the most crucial player for us. No ifs, ums, or buts. He's been, if we didn't have Dyson Daniels in there, we would have really, really struggled, and we probably wouldn't have got such a big win over Spain. And I think his ability to defend and score probably makes him my MVP of the opening 3 games in the group stage.
Yeah, love it. I'm going to go down the same path, mate. I think what he's been able to do on the defensive end has been, I guess, unmatched by many. And I think, at the end of the day, it's going to be really, really important to see how he continues his development within the NBA system and obviously in the international basketball system as well. And, again, though, we could pick any one of these 3 players that we've just mentioned in Giddey, Landale, and Daniels, and we could all easily and comfortably decide that they are the best player for the Boomers so far. And that's a massive, I guess, credit to the Boomers. But I think it also does stem back down to it as well. When you look outside of that, there's not a lot of production. We've seen Paddy Mills obviously had that 1 good game and 2 very poor games. And then it sort of just drops off the face of the earth. Dante Exum's been okay. Josh Green has done absolutely nothing. Nick Kay has been up and down. Will Magne's been good defensively. They're just a few of the guys who have been playing consistent minutes. So that is the reason why they currently have a 1-2 record for the Olympic campaign right now. Now, let's get into, obviously, what the Boomers are going to have to do on their road to gold. Now, looking at, obviously, these group stages, it's a very tough group stage for the Boomers. And we're going to touch on them just in a second. But looking at the other side of the bracket, now, Canada will be taking on France. Germany will be taking on Greece. And then the game outside of the Boomers v Serbia is Team USA taking on Brazil. Now, for me, I've got Canada beating France. I've got Germany beating Greece. And I've got Team USA beating Brazil. That's obviously a very, very popular opinion, and I think it's a very easy decision to say. Do you agree with that, Jez? And what are some of your thoughts, obviously, with some of these games? Because I think, in particular, the Canada v France game is one that's really catching my attention because you got a team that's 3-0 and a team that's 2-1, and obviously France is in their home nation. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think the opposite side of the draw to us, where you do have Germany against Greece, France versus Canada. That I don't know. I see two clear winners in those games. I think it's definitely going to be a really, really tantalizing semi-final between Canada and Germany. I think Germany continue to turn heads about how good they are, despite not having sort of any real, like, say, major NBA superstars in their team, but they've proven time and time again that their depth and their ability to play together has, yeah, shot them up in these tournaments. Obviously, winning the World Cup, and then now, yeah, just playing so well and have that 3-0 record, and then going up against Greece. So obviously, it is always going to be tough to stop Giannis. But if they do that, we'll see them sort of cruise through there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really. You can't rate France, especially against Canada. France had it sort of a really, really uh, tough, like, say, preseason, these exhibition games coming in, and they haven't really shown that they are worthy of playing for a medal in this tournament. I don't think so. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Canada plays against Germany more than what's going to happen in the quarterfinals there. And obviously, USA will breeze past Brazil, and then yeah, our game against Serbia is going to be a tough one. It's yeah, our exhibition game against them was, I don't know, it was good for us. It obviously helped us build confidence, but yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit. What are your thoughts on the draw, Josh?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think the thing is obviously Germany come away with a very favourable matchup to Greece, and that's obviously what you get finishing 3-0, and they were super impressive. You know, you touched on it there, and I'm going to link it back to another article that we wrote over there at www.thebasketballfix.com, and that's our Olympic power rankings. Now, at this stage, it was the Team USA at 1. Germany at 2, Canada 3, France 4, and the Boomers at 5. And, you know, looking at that, you know, those top 4 teams potentially are going to be teams that advance. And then you've obviously got the Boomers and Serbia coming up as well. So I just think, you know, you're 100% spot on. I think Canada will verse Germany in that semi-final matchup for a chance of obviously playing for gold or bronze. And I just think Germany are in such a good spot. They absolutely dominated France in that final game of their group stage, and then they had no problem, obviously breezing past Japan and can't remember who the last team was in that particular group. What was that one? Japan and who was the final one? It's gone blank to me. Was it Brazil? No, was it Brazil? It was Brazil, I think. It was Brazil. But they had no problem breezing past those two teams. And, you know, you look at, obviously, Brazil's taking on Team USA, and they'll have an easy run. So, like you mentioned, they'll go through. But, yeah, I think out of all the games, the Boomers v Serbia one is probably the most interesting one in terms of the result, because I think it's probably going to be the closest. And it's going to be the most interesting because, yeah, on form, Canada should beat France. On form, Germany should beat, obviously, Greece, and then Team USA should beat Brazil. So let's get into the Boomers v Serbia game right now, though. And the biggest, I think, matchup for me that I'm looking forward to is obviously, could you call him the Australian version of Nikola Jokic in Jock Landale? Now he's averaging 17.7 points per game, and Jokic has put up some incredible stat lines. Against South Sudan, he had 22 and 13. And then against Puerto Rico, he had a near triple-double with 14, 15, 9, and 2. So what are your thoughts on this matchup, mate? Because I think, you know, we touched on it with obviously Greece and Giannis. This is where the game is going to be won or lost, I think, for the Boomers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can't do a preview of this game and not talk about, all right, how are Australia gonna stop Jokic? But yeah, I don't think you can. You obviously, nobody can. The NBA, no one in the NBA can stop Jokic. So I think, especially for us who sort of struggled to shut down Giannis, I think it's all about limiting what he can do, and also limiting the guys that are around him, because we've seen Bogdanovic also have some really, really big games. He scored 30 points against South Sudan, 8 rebounds. He's had 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists against Puerto Rico, and 14 points, 6 and 4 against the USA. But I think he's been shooting from 3 at an incredible rate. Against South Sudan, he dropped 4 from 5. So he's also a massive danger for us. So it's not just about stopping Jokic, it's what we're going to do to be able to stop Bogdanovic as well. And I think that's where we need to sort of work on, okay, well, what are we going to do? Is Landale going to try and take on Jokic and you move Dyson Daniels to trying to shut down Bogdanovic? Or what do you think Gorge should do to try and shut down this 1-2 punch that Serbia have?
Yeah, I think obviously the obvious selections, I guess, for Nikola Jokic, we'll start off there, is Landau and then Will Magnay coming off the bench. Now, a lot of people have been talking, what's the point of taking over Duop Reef if you're not going to play him? But I have lots of questions about Duop. I just think he's a very good offensive player and he's a good inside and outside scorer, but his defensive capabilities are not up to scratch. And I just think there's a lot of questions about, obviously, him v. Nikola Jokic. I honestly think Will Magnay is probably even a better matchup than Jock Landau to myself personally. And it's obviously crazy for some people to hear that an NBL player is a better matchup for an NBA MVP than what an NBA talented player is. But I just think what we see from Will Magnay is he's very fast on his feet. He's a very, very good blockage player. I think he's a good person in the lanes as well. I just think the way that you beat Serbia is you make the others beat you. And I think the thing is, we got Dyson Daniels, and we've mentioned him exclusively throughout this whole interview. Bogdanovic is going to score no matter what, I think, personally, because he's the second option on this team. I think he's still going to probably give up 15 to 20 points. But if you can limit him to those 15 to 20 points and shut down the rest, I think it's going to go a long way for the Boomers to win this particular game. But it also does come down to, can the Boomers find enough scoring? And that obviously comes back to Paddy Mills. So what are your thoughts on Paddy Mills, obviously, in this particular game? Because I think a lot of people are worried about Paddy. I think this is going to be his last Olympic campaign. I think he's obviously had a very massive dip in form, and we touched on it in our previous show, mate. Gorge said that they've got to come in with some good form and obviously playing lots of minutes, and Paddy wasn't doing that. And I think that's a direct correlation as to what's been going on for the Boomers so far for Paddy Mills.
Yeah, it is. It is tough. Obviously, I had a lot of faith in Paddy coming into this tournament. It was really to the point where I tried to be Paddy.
You got Paddy on the show.
I had Paddy on the show, but yeah, I think it is. It's tough. Like you said, it was all about getting guys that had minutes, and you're playing a game every 3 days. And I think obviously as these types of tournaments go on, you're going to get tired and you're going to get fatigued, and Paddy probably doesn't have that same sort of fitness because he wasn't playing. If that's what it's been, why he's sort of been missing or not playing as well is another story. But I think if he's not shooting at a high percentage after the sort of the first or second quarter, I don't think you can be giving him 30 minutes in this game. I think you've got to look to other options, and that's either increasing Dante Exum's minutes or even bringing in someone like a more specialized shooter, give a little bit more minutes to Jack McVeigh so he can start working on the outside, or maybe you're even looking at bringing in Delhi and getting him to play. I think something we haven't touched on, and that is Delhi. Like, he hasn't been getting a whole lot of minutes, but I think when he's been on, he's been quite influential for us. He's really sort of, I don't know, given us a boost, to give it like almost like an extra life. You've had a Red Bull and you just start to power, because it feels like we've been a bit more focused. He's given confidence to the other players around him. So maybe that's something that we need to look to if plan A isn't working.
Hashtag Red Bull gives you wings. Hopefully Red Bull will hear that and reach out to us as well. I'd love some free Red Bulls, what everyone does. But yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. I think it's going to be very interesting, because this is a very intriguing matchup. And, taking on Serbia, I just think it's going to be, I guess, yeah, obviously we've touched on it, the battle against Landale and Jokic, and obviously with Bogdanovic and stopping him. But I think the biggest thing is if Mills can somehow go off and Bogdanovic goes off, they somehow cancel each other out. If they both go for 20 points, that's a cancel out. And then it's obviously down to Landale and Jokic. They're not going to be the exact same statistical stat lines, but they could be very close. So then it does come down to the others. It comes down to a Nikola Jovic for Serbia. It does come down to a Dyson Daniels or a Josh Giddey for the Boomers as well. So I'm excited. It's a very intriguing matchup. What are your thoughts, Jez, on this game, mate? Who's going to win this and what margin by?
Like, I don't know. It's going to be close either way, I think. You can't sort of take that exhibition game into account. Bogdanovic didn't play, so it's not going to be as comfortable for Australia. There's a lot more to think about. So, yeah, I think a lot of it, it's scary, man. A lot of it does ride on Paddy. And if you look at this tournament, Paddy hit 50% in the first game. We won by 12. He hit 20% in the second game. We got busted. He hit 33% and we lost by a little bit. So it's like you can almost see a direct correlation, at least in our scoring and our winning or losing margins, of how Paddy Mills plays, because we don't have that, say, second scorer really behind Giddy that's going to put up some points. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to still have my confidence in Australia. I think they will step up, and if Paddy's got to be big time Paddy, not just fever Paddy, for us to get through. And I'll put my faith once again in the Mills factory and fever Paddy, and say we're going to get up by the slimmest of margins. What about you?
Big Daddy Paddy. I wrote in
Big
that
Daddy
that
Paddy.
obviously Spain. I wrote in that Spain v Australia game recap. There's 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and fever Paddy. And haven't I been wrong since then, mate? But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, and I feel like I've sort of, I guess, been a Boomers hater throughout these whole previews and shows coming up into the Olympics. So I didn't think they'd come out of the group stages as a top 2 team. They were obviously a team who I thought would advance as a 3rd place team, but I've actually got them being eliminated here against Serbia. I've actually got Serbia by 5 points. I just think what Nikola Jokic does, there's a reason he is an MVP in the NBA, and there's a reason why he is one of the greatest players in the modern era. And I just don't think we've got the caliber player or the class to be able to stop him. We've obviously seen what happened with Giannis, who is a similar player in a way. He's a bit more attacking of the basket, obviously, but Jokic is a great scorer. He's a great passer. He's a great rebounder. I just don't think there's anyone who can stop him on the Boomers team. So, and I don't really trust our whole system defense. So yeah, Serbia by 5 points for me. Now, Jez, I want to get your thoughts on the medals. Now, do you want me to give me my predictions first, or would you like to kick it off?
You can go first.
Alrighty, let's kick it off. So I've currently got, at this stage, Germany winning the gold medal, Team USA walking away with a silver, Canada walking away with a bronze, and Serbia walking away just outside of that bracket. Now, if we actually look back, and before you give your thoughts, Jez, Serbia were silver medalists in Tokyo in 2020, and the Boomers were bronze medalists in that particular Olympics as well. So Serbia, they're no scrubs in this particular league. So you've got second v third at the last Olympics taking off in the quarterfinals. So it's massive. But give us your thoughts, mate, on the medal predictions.
Oh, all right. I'm going to say USA are going to win. They'll take gold. I'm going to go against you, and I'm going to say that Canada are going to pip Germany in that semi-final, and then Germany are going to take the bronze, and Australia will come fourth.
Wow. Like it. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think for myself, I'm hoping for the World Cup gold medal double for Germany. I just think it'd be really cool to obviously see a team who I think hasn't got, like we mentioned, hasn't got that star player on their team. Dennis Schroeder, Daniel Tice, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner. That's the sort of guys they've got on their team. But they're not household names just yet. You know a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant. You know a Giannis. You know a Nikola Jokic. You know a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But does the average fan know a Dennis Schroeder? I don't think so. And it really does, I guess, come back to international basketball as a whole. It's a team sport. It's a fast-moving sort of pick and roll, lots of passing. It's incredible to watch. And I'd love to see Germany knock off Team USA. And it all feeds back to Noah Lyles' comments, who recently won a gold medal for USA in the 100-meter sprint, saying that Team USA aren't the world champions yet because they haven't won a gold medal yet. So it's going to be very interesting. But for the Boomers' sake, so I'd love to see them obviously take the victory against Serbia tomorrow night. Looking forward to that one. But Jez, have you got any final thoughts before we wrap up today's episode?
Bring back Fever Paddy, man. If Fever Paddy puts up a big game, we might just see him return on the show. Who knows?
Definitely, mate. And before we wrap it up, I just want to touch on one of my predictions as well, which sadly didn't come true. But I'm very looking forward to seeing what they do in the future. That is South Sudan. Honestly, mate, what they did was incredible. They are, knocked off, Puerto Rico in a pretty impressive win to make Olympic history. They obviously went down to Team USA and Serbia in those games, but they put up a massive fight in both of those games as well, and earned, I think, a lot of respect and a lot of, new fans as well. It's a small country. It's a very new country. And the basketball program that Luol Deng has started over there, within the last 10 to 15 years, has realistically grown leaps and bounds over the last couple of seasons. And obviously, the Basketball Fix is an NBL-based podcast. 3 of the NBL players obviously had massive roles and have been successful for the South Sudan team in this most recent Olympics as well. So it's exciting, mate, to see what they build in the future. Have you got any thoughts on that, mate, before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just have like I think it's been great for the NBL and it's been great for South Sudan that they've got this far. And you know what, they so narrowly missed qualifying once again on points differential shows really how important it is to play all three games for 40 minutes when you're playing in a FIBA tournament, because they just missed out and could have made history and could have qualified, and this would be a completely different conversation we were having if they just could have got up there and held that, the margin. I think it was 6 in their last game. So it's a shame, but it is great for the sport and great for South Sudan. And I hope that they continue to grow as a basketball nation and continue to send players over to Australia to strengthen the NBL as a whole.
No, definitely, mate. Now, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Now, if you want to listen and read any of those articles that we have been touching on today, make sure you, again, go and look at www.thebasketballfix.com. There's not just articles around the Olympics. Obviously, we're an NBL-based podcast. There's a lot of content going to be coming out and is already out about the NBL season coming up for NBL 25. But for today's episode, that will wrap it up. Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you guys get your streaming services from. And until next time, that was your Basketball Fix.
Phoenix force a turnover.